Hey, what's going on, guys? Kalamazi here, and today, unfortunately, I have some actual bad news for you guys. Unlike the last few videos that have been really exciting and upbeat because, hey, there's new builds emerging for Demonology and Destro. Well, Demonology, but Destro and AF had some changes. Unfortunately, I have some undocumented changes to the undocumented changes that we talked about last week. Mainly the changes being that pets are dealing damage, increased damage with Shadow's Embrace, with Haunt, with Eradication, and with From the Shadows. So I woke up earlier today and I logged on and I turned on my computer, wanted to start stream, and I noticed on Battle.net I had a bit of an update downloading, and it was the PTR. Now, for those of you who aren't aware, PTR has been marked as release for about I think 5 days now, give or take. And when Blizzard marks a candidate for release, that's basically it's released, it's ready to go. This is what's going to happen. These are pretty much the final changes that are going to take place. But this has been a bit of an odd PTR cycle because it's been marked as release, but there's also been a handful of hotfixes that have been coming in to a release build, which is not something you really see a whole lot. Like, a day ago we had Necrolord Demon Hunter buffs and last changes. Like, it's just weird. Like, when a candidate is marked as release, typically it means, hey, things aren't going to be changing, but they're actually doing hot fixes to this. So it's a bit interesting, but nonetheless, saw the build go live today and I wanted to test a handful of legendaries, the Balespire's Burning Core one, on stream and everything. I logged on and someone asked in chat, hey, how is pet damage the same as it was before? I'm like, yeah, it's the same, nothing really changed. So I pulled my imp out and I was playing AF, pulled my imp out, told him, let's just check though, to attack the target. And we took note of what the imp damage actually was. It's dealing 700 fire damage, basically from a firebolt, 700 to 720, give or take. Then I put up a haunt. And I was like, it dealt less. It dealt about the same, 690. And then I put up Shadow's Embrace with the haunt. And well, unfortunately, it dealt the same damage. So I said to myself, this really sucks. It appears that they ended up reverting the changes to Shadow's Embrace and to Haunt for it affecting your pet damage. Whether it's your Imp, your Void Walker, your Fell Hunters, your Fell Hunter, I guess, your Succubus, whatever, the change has actually been reverted. Now, I said to myself also, hey, well, maybe that means they actually increased Dark Glare damage for I-Beam. Then I pulled my Dark Glare out and it dealt 443. I launched both of them, Haunt and Shadow's Embrace, and it's still dealing basically the same damage, 438, I guess 467. It's the same thing, same damage across the board. So they did not add in any kind of like main, because previously for Demo, your Tyrant was your, FTS was affecting your Tyrant. It's Demon Fire damage. They did not add it in for Dark Glare. Spoilers ahead, they did not add it in. Destruction had Eradication's damage buff removed from pets as well. It does not affect your Infernal. It does not affect your actual Imp. We're going to skip over Destro actually for the most part here because Eradication is not like a baseline ability. We have Haunt baseline and, well, more or less baseline. And we have Shadow's Embrace baseline for AF. So Destro did unfortunately also get changed. Your pet damage not increased by Eradication. But unlike Destro and AF, Demonology wasn't increasing imp damage or Felgar damage. It wasn't increasing wild imp damage. It was increasing Tyrant damage. And unlike those two, Haunt and Shadow's Embrace just say, like, it's just an increase to damage, right? Like, it increases all damage dealt. What's the actual exact wording on this? Let's see here. But basically, it's just a flat damage increase. But the way Shadow's Embrace works, or the way From the Shadows works, is that from my understanding, it has to go whitelist and a blacklist, where it, like, certain abilities, it will deal more damage. Like if it's Shadow Flame, but it might be Shadow Flame and it might not deal more. Like, people were discussing this maybe being an undocumented or an unwarranted change. Not unwarranted, but it being a change that Blizzard didn't intentionally make. But I don't think it actually is. I think this change was intended, but I don't know why they go back on it. Because it's not like they just added an extra 0 somewhere and this all appeared. Maybe I could see that being the case for Destro and AF, because I mean, okay, it's sort of like baseline. It might happen, but changing From the Shadows to affect your Tyrant damage specifically and not have your Dark Glare or Infernal, it doesn't seem like it's an unintended change. But the question is, why was it reverted? So I pulled out my Tyrant and I launched a set of dogs here, And I said, okay, this is a different build. This is different. FTS and like Haunt Shadows Race are different. My Tyrant hit for roughly, I guess, what, 1655 or so. Spoilers ahead. We gotta wait a minute or so here, but they also are nerfed from the Shadows. From the Shadows does not increase Tyrant damage anymore. Now, Demonology was still buffed with Dread Lash and the baseline attack power damage to Dreadstalker, so that's still there. But the problem is that FTS, like the FTS demonic consumption, I guess interaction was nerfed. The FTS changes having an effect decon, having an effect your Tyrant in general, meant that there is very well, quite possibly, a different build of Demonology emerging. The video that I put out last night, looking at different Demonology builds, looking at like Bale Spider's Burning Core, the legendary that was buffed, looking at, you know, the other like Shadow Flame-esque abilities that work with from the Shadows, because it's Demon Bolt, it's Implosion, it's Hand of Gul'dan splash damage, and up until yesterday, it was Demonic Demon Fire from your Tyrant. But previously, before, you know, your Tyrant was affected, yeah, Demon Bolt, Implosion, and Hand of Gul'dan, that's fine, but it wasn't really enough to push FTS like to the Summon Vile Fiend levels when you're playing Decon, because Vile Fiend was so important for Demonology. Like, it's an extra pet that, number one, deals more damage with your Tyrant, number two, is extended from your Tyrant, and number three, gives your Tyrant more health siphon, so it, in a sense, deals more damage as well. Playing FTS meant you had a Demon Bolt increase and an Implosion increase and like Hand of Gul'dan increase, which was really good when you paired it with you know, like Dread Lash and AoE Mythic Plus. But when you went into a boss or like a single target setting, your damage with this build in Mythic Plus is not good. Your single target damage is not good with this build. The change to Decon made it a lot better, and also the change to Decon meant that, like with FTS being a thing, meant that builds like this very well might have actually emerged being a thing. Like maybe FTS pulled ahead of Vile Fiend if you're playing Necrolord. Maybe like FTS with Bale Spiders, and this build here pulls ahead because it gives a bit of an increase to like Bale Spiders, to Bale Spiders, to actual Demon Bolt, to Necrolord Decimating Bolt, and pairing that with Decon being like working now with FTS meant that it might be a thing. But with Decon being removed, unfortunately FTS is just not a good talent anymore unless you're playing the big dogs build, and that's an issue. Decon is so incredibly strong for Demonology right now. Even with Nether Portal technically simming a tiny bit higher in pure single target, this is a 3-minute cooldown, which means that number one, it makes kill times much more relevant on certain fights, and number two, this talent requires you to essentially just pop the talent and sit still for 15 seconds and not do anything. It just summon imps with a subpar rotation of Shadow Bolt hand, and then when you actually end up summoning them out, you have to summon your Tyrant. So you essentially have to plant for 20 seconds playing Nether Portal, and it's just not very realistic. Your Tyrant takes a bit of setup too, but nowhere near a Portal does, and seeing as how it's quite literally a 1.5-minute cooldown that's tied to your main cooldown, which can be reduced to a minute with Wilfred's, makes it even more impactful, makes it even stronger. So I'm very disappointed in these changes. My big thing is, like, if a candidate is marked as release, it means that things are ready to go. I'm not a big fan of these hot fixes to a release build. I get things have to happen, but if things are, maybe this is just me, but if things aren't ready, then don't mark it as release. Just don't do it. If you need another week, do it. Just take the other week. Don't do it, because it's frustrating that I made videos on it, but it's more just disappointing, you know, because like a new build was sort of emerging, and now it's just sort of, you know, not really there. But I also get it from a developmental standpoint. It's just a bit unfortunate. This does once again, you know, bring more light on just how Decon is so incredibly strong for Demo. It needs to be addressed. Saxhole is still a mess, and even like I said, even with Portal being your more so like de facto go-to single target talent, or what they want it to be, it's just not. Decon is so good, and Decon pigeonholes you into playing Vile Fiend, playing Grimoire. You can't even think about FTS or Soul Strike anymore because of how strong Decon is with these abilities in single target. When it comes to Mythic Plus, sure, you can play Soul Strike, Grimoire, you can play, you know, Vile Fiend, Soul Conduit. That's fine, because it's not just as cut and dry as a raid fights go. But I was really excited to see FTS be a thing for Demonology. It's like, man, this is almost like a new spec. You've got Bale Spiders now, maybe to play. You've got Wilfred's with new interactions, double dog sets being extended. You've got just you know, a new sequencing, like a new opener, because you would actually push your dogs back as your final spell before you cast your Tyrant. So they'd actually cast FTS and your Tyrant would get the damage increase. But now it's just back to the way Demonology was, which is fine. Demo is still fine now. I think it's better in single target than most people think it is, but it's not AF. And it's just, I was just hoping for some changes, but it's just sort of unfortunate seeing it all happen. Well, I mean, you know, honestly, 2 or 3 days before launch, but it is what it is. So you might be wondering how much of a nerf this actually is to Affliction, to Deshro, and to Demo. For Affliction, I'm going to take my man Affliction's log here from Hungering Destroyer Mythic. You can look at actual pet damage here. Now he's playing, I would assume he's playing full single target build with Cold Embrace here. But even if he's not, in this log right here, you're not going to see anything be affected by Haunt or Shadow's Embrace, or your Firebolt damage for your Imp, that is. So roughly taking the Firebolt damage being, let's just say 140,000 damage, right? Which it's 138k. If you multiply this by, let's just say 20%, it's going to be probably like 20, we'll say, if you're playing Cold Embraces, you're going to have that extra 4.5% or whatever it is on Shadow's Embrace. But let's just say 21%. Just for simplicity's sake. So you're looking at roughly an extra 29,000 DPS, give or take. He dealt 2 million damage over the course of the fight. We'll round to 30k here. All right. So he dealt 30,000 damage over the course, or 2 million over the course of the fight. But you have roughly 30k extra from your Imp versus, you know, with Shadow's Embrace and Haunt affecting it versus, well, just being the way that it is right now. That equates to roughly a 66.6. Repeating, of course, until here. Memes aside, roughly about a 70% DPS increase that we're not going to be getting. This could be anywhere from 60 to 70, maybe 75, depending on Cold Embrace, and also depending on Shadow's Embrace uptime as well as Haunt. For a Demonology, for Destruction, it's going to be less. Eradication is only, well, let's be real here, Eradication is 10%, and you're not going to maintain a full 100% uptime on Eradication. Honestly, it'll vary a lot depending on what you're doing, and I tried to look for logs, people playing Eradication, they're not doing it, and thank God, because Eradication is miserable. But it wouldn't be as high for Destro. It probably, I'd assume somewhere in the 35 DPS-ish range. The question is, how much would it have been for Destro? And the answer is, I really don't know. I'm just not sure. There were so many builds that were going to emerge, or had a chance of emerging with this being a thing. I mean, Necrolord essentially gained more value because of them buffing Demon Bolt's damage. You had abilities like Power Siphon gaining a lot of value. You had FTS obviously gaining a lot of value. Decon gained value. Power Siphon gained value. You had Balespider's Burning Core gaining value. You had so many things gaining value from this, but unfortunately, with all that being taken into account, we just can't really. It's too hard to calculate, and even with Saxfalls being a big Demon Bolt boost, it's just still garbage. So it's hard to say for Demonology, but like I said, the biggest thing here is just that Demo doesn't, the FTS Dreadlash build for Demonology and Mythic Plus is just not getting the buff, the single target buff. It's just not getting what we thought it would. And I'm going to be real, I'm disappointed. Like I said, I wish these changes, I wish this would have been conveyed, you know, one way or another. But at the same time, it's PTR. This is testing. This is how it goes. And it was most likely undocumented for good reasons. So here's the hoping that it happens. Here's the hoping we get it on Tuesday regardless. And here's the hoping that it happens at least in 9.1. But TLDR, AF did not get its 70% or 70 DPS boost. Destro's not going to get its 30, but no one's probably going to play Eradication anyways. And Demo is in the same spot that it is. What this has changed though, for locks heading into 9.0.5, is it going to like, how are locks looking when it comes to 9.0.5? About the same. The Malefic Rapture changes were reverted for Affliction, so there's not really a whole lot going on there. Basically, everything is the way it is. I do think that Destro is better than people are assuming right now in like 2-target, like Huntsman Baltimore, and I think even Demo is a little better single target wise, playing the, you know, Vile Fiend Grimoire build. Whether you're playing the Stamina build or not, I think it's better than people think it is, but AF is still going to be the best spec, I feel. Nothing really changed. It's all the same. Now, people are asking also a lot how Destro is going to be next raid tier. First of all, I have no idea. We literally have no information about the next raid tier, barring there being 10 bosses and we know the names of 4 of them. But I think a lot of the Chaos Bolt buff and the actual 5% buff that Destro got a few weeks ago or a month ago, maybe a little further than that, does change things a little bit. I think if you saw the Race the World first happening in now, you very well might see Destro on a couple fights in the actual like tier. I think certainly on Huntsman Baltimore and potentially on a few more, depending on comp and what the guild might actually need. I think this Destro in its current form right now, once again, we have no idea what's going to happen in 9.1. I think it's going to depend a lot on what happens or what the next raid fights look like. Because structurally, if we run into a couple of Huntsman Baltimore fights, Destro can crank. If we have a Raden kind of fight, Destro can crank. And if we have an Il'gynoth kind of fight, Destro can crank. But then if you have fights like this tier where 4 of them, where you have Shriekwing, you have Sludgefish, you have Shriekwing, Sludgefish, Hungering Destroyer. What's the 4th Patchwork boss this tier? Where you have Shriekwing, Shriekwing, Zymox, Destroyer, Sludge Fist being patchwork, and then you have like Enerva being basically patchwork, and you have like Sun King being patchwork in disguise. Well, I mean, Aft's gonna do better there, assuming everything stays the same. But TLDR 9.0.5, everything's pretty much the way it is now. We're not getting the small pet buff. Hopefully it happens later. No idea. Might have just been a bug, but I'm assuming that looking at how the FTS changes came into account and how that's probably not an oversight and has to be coded in, Blizzard was messing with something, but it just wasn't going to happen. So thanks for watching though, dudes. Now, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but I am a bearer of news regardless. I try to keep it upbeat, but you know, I'm going to be real, I'm disappointed. When we saw it on stream, I was really pumped to play with these new legendaries and these new builds and just see how it was going to go. But I guess we're just going to be stuck in the same thing we were for the next 3 months until 9.1 hits. At the same time though, Blizzard did mention that they want 9.1 PTR up really quickly after 0.5 drops, and 0.5 drops in about 4 days, give or take. So it's only May 6th right now. The patch drops like what, May 9th? I'm sorry, March. Jeez, I'm 30 years old, my mind is going. I would assume we'll probably see 9.1 PTR drop within the next 2, probably 3 weeks, and if things move quickly, maybe early raid testing before April ends up hitting. If they maintain the all of heroic boss testing schedule and all of mythic, maybe a bit of retesting barring the last boss, I would assume we probably see like a mid to late May release for the patch and probably early June for the raid, as long as they push it back a few weeks, which they, you know, normally do. Let me know what you guys think of these changes in the comment section below. Once again, keep in mind, I don't design Warlock specs or make any changes or anything like that. I just report on things, so don't get mad at me. Yeah, thanks for watching though, guys. If you want to see more WoW content, be sure to hit the like and subscribe buttons below. Any Week of Wars profiles or add-ons you can get free on my Twitch. If you want to swing by, grab them, or just hang out, feel free to do so. Thanks again, dudes, and I'll catch you all again soon on stream. Peace.